So now we are going to move on to proteins. So first of all, their primary use is for building blocks, for using the amino acids to build more protein or protein combination structures like your glycoproteins and your lipoproteins. But either way, they are used for building blocks to make protein. The secondary use is for energy, but that is actually going to be a last resort. So obviously glucose is the primary source of fuel that our body likes to use. If we don't have enough carbohydrates or glucose, we will shift over and use fats as a source of energy for us to go through respiration. And then finally, proteins will be used last. So we're down on carbs, down on fats. Okay, well then we can use proteins to make energy. So there are a couple different kinds of proteins. We have complete proteins and incomplete proteins. Our complete proteins are going to be mostly our animal proteins like eggs, milk and milk products, meat like your fish, poultry, pork, beef, lamb, and also soybeans too, which is a plant-based complete protein. But complete protein means that it's going to have all of your essential amino acids. Okay, and the next slide we're going to talk about them, but we have 8 essential amino acids, meaning that those 8 amino acids, those 8 essential amino acids, are ones that we cannot make in our bodies. We have to get them in our diet. Okay, so an incomplete protein are those proteins that have some of those essential amino acids, but not all of them. So like our legumes, like beans and lentils, or nuts and seeds, grains, cereals, vegetables, they all have amino acids, but they don't have all 8 of the essential amino acids, so they're considered incomplete proteins. Okay, and it might be good to know also that, because we mentioned it for every other nutrient, but protein should make up about 12 to 20% of our total caloric intake. Okay. Okay, so we do have, I don't know if you heard that, Discord just went off. If you should already know from Bio 32 that we have about 20 amino acids. Okay, so 20 total amino acids that our body can use. They all will have different R groups that make them different amino acids, but 8 of them are essential. So 8 of the 20 are ones that we cannot make on our own, which include tryptophan, methionine, valine, threonine, phenylalanine, leucine, isoleucine, and lysine. These are all 8 of our essential amino acids. Again, you have to get it in your diet. We cannot make them. And there's actually 2 others, histidine and arginine. These are both essential during infancy. So during infancy, our body does not have the ability to make these amino acids, but once we get a little bit older, then yes, we can make histidine and arginine. So there are 8 true essential amino acids, 10 while you're still an infant. So those complete proteins that we talked about in the previous slide, that comes from a lot of animal products, but that doesn't mean that somebody who doesn't eat animal products, so somebody who is vegan or vegetarian, that doesn't mean that they can't get all 8 amino acids. They just have to be very careful with what they eat. So for example, corn and other grains don't have all 8 amino acids. They're going to have probably methionine, valine, threonine, phenylalanine, leucine, isoleucine. So 6 out of the 8. Well, beans and other legumes may have valine through lysine. So 7 of the 8. Now, if you eat either one of those alone, you're not going to get all 8 of the essential amino acids that you need. But if you combine them together, then you have all 8. You have a complete meal. Other ideas for complete meals that don't include meat consumption or rice and beans would give you a complete set of your 8 amino acids. You have a grain and then you have a bean. Bread and peanut butter. So you have your grain and then you have a nut that's going to give you all 8 amino acids together, and then rice and tofu. So as long as you have the right combinations, you can definitely get all 8 amino acids, essential amino acids. And then you should already know this whole process of how we make those proteins from the amino acids. So once we've digested the protein down to its single amino acids, we can then use those to build new proteins. And as you already know, we go through DNA to RNA, our transcription, and then RNA to protein through translation, which is what you're seeing here. So you're seeing the ribosome reading the mRNA transcript that we made to build protein, which is translation. So you're going to have a tRNA coming and bringing each individual amino acid to the growing chain until we have a complete protein. And then as you can see, these proteins are being put inside a vesicle and being sent out for exocytosis, because these proteins here are attached to the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and attached ribosomes make proteins for export out of the cell. But again, all of this should be reviewed for you from Bio 32. Okay, so the proteins that we're going to be building in our body using those amino acids include keratin that we find in our hair and nails, include our actin and myosin that we use for muscle contraction, include, now this is, let's see if you guys remember, do you guys know what tissue type this is? It's a little blurry, but you should still be able to tell. This is dense regular connective tissue, and what protein is the base or makes up the bulk of our dense regular connective tissue? Collagen. So we use those amino acids to build collagen as well. Also antibodies. So antibodies use amino acids, so antibodies are protein. Hemoglobin, very important protein that you guys should already know about. And then also some enzymes, transmembrane ion channel. So like the pumps and stuff we've talked about before, where ions are transported from one side of the cell to the other, and more. So lots of different things that we build using amino acids. Okay, so like I said, protein can be used for energy as a last resort. So again, we want to use carbohydrates first. We'll use fats second, and then proteins third as a last resort. So proteins get broken down into amino acids through hydrolysis. And when we build it back up to a protein, that's through dehydration synthesis. Again, that's review. But when we break down the proteins into amino acids, we actually have the ability to produce what are called keto acids. And we'll talk a little bit about more what keto acids are in a second. Make sure you know that keto acids and ketones are not the same thing. They're different. And again, we're going to talk about keto acids in the next video, but they're not the same thing. But we can use those amino acids to produce keto acids. When we produce those keto acids, though, we do have a waste product of ammonia. Over here, this NH3 is ammonia. And ammonia is actually toxic in high levels in the body. So our liver can actually convert that into urea, and then we will excrete that urea through our urine. But those keto acids can actually be used to put into a, or they can get converted into a intermediate, glucose intermediate, to use for glycolysis. And then those keto acids can also be used to enter the citric acid cycle as well. And we'll talk about how those keto acids are used in the citric acid cycle in the next video. But again, those keto acids can be used for energy by putting it through glycolysis and then going all the way through to make some ATP, or the citric acid cycle directly, and again, going through that process to make ATP. And I believe that is it for, yeah, for, well, I guess we could talk, we're not going to talk about malabsorption yet, but you should, just as a review for, from digestive system, that when, for protein digestion, remember that protein is digested in the stomach through a enzyme called pepsin. Pepsin gets made by chief cells of our stomach. They actually make pepsinogen. And pepsinogen is an inactive form of pepsin that gets activated in the presence of hydrochloric acid. And then pepsin will break down the protein. Those protein fragments will get sent down into the small intestine, where it will meet pancreatic enzymes proteases like trypsin, where it'll get broken down even more. And then we also have our brush border enzymes that are being produced by these simple columnar epithelial cells that are lining our digestive tract, lining that small intestine. And those brush border enzymes will break down any remaining protein fragments into their individual amino acids, and then they're going to get absorbed into the bloodstream. But that's for just a review on digestion of how we process those proteins. But that's it for our proteins, and we will get into malabsorption right here in the next video.